Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Coding in Seal. It's Friday, I hope you've had lovely weeks. I had an alright week for sure. Last week we did a marathon stream which I really enjoyed and I was feeling really up for it on the day. Still had energy levels at the end of it, even though clearly I was talking less and coding more in silence by the end of it. But I did feel it over the weekend. It was definitely a stretch for me. So we will be doing more of those at some point in the future, but it's not going to be like a recurring thing. This stream this week should be shorter, but we'll see where it goes. And we're not directly going to continue what we were doing in the previous stream, which we created a brand new SvelteKit app. We may create a brand new Next.js app this time, because over the week Next.js had another great conference. They had a great presentation of Next.js 13, which had features that I'm excited about for sure. SEO related, performance related, user experience related features. But most of all, they also had an OG image generation, social preview image generation library where you write some JSX, some HTML looking things, and then you can get an edge function if you deploy to Vercel to display a nice social preview. And if you remember what we tried to do last stream, and for a month of streams really, was the exact same thing. I did ask around and I did look into various options of how GitHub, for example, may be doing its own awesome social image previews. But in the end, I decided to go with browser capture. So we made Puppeteer or Playwright, we tried both. Go to our website where we had styled a dedicated component using Tailwind CSS and took a screenshot of it with a dynamic title, maybe dynamic backgrounds, that sort of thing. But the way Next.js is doing it now is with a way that I didn't find that convenient with the libraries that I looked at. And today we'll look if Next.js's library, which is apparently using a library I didn't explore, is it going to be more convenient to do it that way? It's definitely going to be faster, so the output is going to be you get your social preview image immediately, which may cause some social platforms like Twitter to be happier with the result. If you manage to mess up the caching, then it's going to be creating the image fast enough for you to not get the, oh no, the ugly thumbnail, I suppose. But I do think it's one of those things where it will be easier to show what we're talking about than talking about it. So rather than tell, do say hi in the chat if you feel like it. And again, tell me what you're working on. Tell me if you've learned something cool this week. Tell me anything you'd like. This is a very chill Friday for sure. So I do have the agenda on the right here, but I can switch to desktop view as well, lest I forget. And I will talk a little bit about Next.js 13. Next.js is one of my two frameworks of choice nowadays. I do sometimes go with Next.js, sometimes I go with SvelteKit. I am experiencing React fatigue, like many people. I do find Svelte is closer to doing HTML, so for beginners, for people that don't know JavaScript, for example, I would show examples in Svelte because it's closer to vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And SvelteKit is super powerful. It's maturing nowadays, close to an official release, I'm sure. But Next.js is the React framework for me. It has been for years. My own website is in Next.js. And when it comes to things like internationalization, localization, you cannot beat it at the moment. So those are features that SvelteKit does not have. So I will bite the React bullet and use Next.js if that is very important. Of course, React is still really good. React is amazing to have in your CV. Thanks as well to React Native. It could be an in for you to get into mobile app development in general. Because if you know React, you can do React Native and then suddenly you have a native app on your phone without knowing Swift, without knowing Kotlin. Do you still do Kotlin nowadays? Anyway, for Android. But with React Native, again, you may have some performance hits when you're compiling these native apps. There will be some issues there, but with less hassle than learning a brand new language, you will be able to create your native iOS or Android app with it. So huge card, huge skill, huge thing to have in your CV, React experience. Still, even if lots of developers are experiencing a bit of React fatigue. So, if you're looking at it responsibly, Next.js is a better thing to learn than SvelteKit if you have some familiarity with JavaScript and TypeScript. But I do still recommend Svelte and SvelteKit if you have no familiarity at all, because it will introduce you better, I think, to the vanilla concepts. And you need to know the fundamentals in order to progress to the non-fundamentals. That's something we'll explore later when we create an app with Next.js as well. The conference that happened had a few exciting features. I will not talk about all of them, but new way to do layouts, which SvelteKit was inspired by as well and managed to land before Next.js 13 as well. I do think it's a better way to do layouts, to structure your app, to structure your code. The way they do streaming and placeholders, we'll explore if we have time in the end. Most of all, they did yet again SEO and performance related upgrades, a new way to import fonts, which also works with custom fonts you can upload to your site. I have found that this is the best thing to do. If someone tells you improve SEO or get better SEO, they usually mean I want my site to appear first in Google or appear before my competitor. And the two things that are coding related and not do they have enough backlinks and content and that sort of thing, are definitely what type of resources are you bringing in? And if you're bringing in a web font, that's going to be an outside connection to Google most of the time, and that's going to take a while. So the first paint is going to be lower. So the time you start streaming data, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to know about the core web vitals to understand this. But pro tip, if someone asks you what's the first thing you'd be looking into if you wanted to improve SEO, I would say code-wise, look at the fonts. What type of fonts are you bringing in? How many are you using? Are you hosting them in your own site? Are you self-hosting them? Are you inlining them? Or are you bringing it from Google Fonts? That's a demonstrable performance hit if you're bringing it from Google Fonts. And Next.js had the automatic web font optimization for a while, but now they have a new way to do it, which I'm interested in exploring, which also works if you have a custom font, if you had a designer, if you had your design team design an amazing new font just for you, so your own brand would be looking a bit different. Now, the way Next.js does it works with that, supposedly. We may see it live later in the day. And the second thing for most make SEO better solutions is, what are you doing with images? How many images do you have on the site, and how are you serving them? And for user experience as well, doing the nice medium style blow up feature where it appears blurred and then shows the actual image, that can also help. But most of all, how many bytes are you getting through to load that first image? There is a image component that Next.js has that has been improved, that has been changed, that we may be looking into. But most of all, today we'll be looking at the Open Graph Images, which is an outside the box help with my SEO solution. Someone tells you, I want to help with my SEO. Usually they want the users to search Google and then the top result is their site. But really what they want is people to convert and click through and get to their site and then buy something or see their content or I don't know what. But they want the conversions, they want that boost. And social images, preview images, when people post your site on Twitter or Discord or whatever else, has been proven to be very effective. People love images. They want to see this, and therefore I think this little sneaky library in this big conference is going to be a great way to go. Theoki asks in the chat, why are you choosing Next over SvelteKit for this project? This is not really a project, this is an exploration because Next.js 13 was just demoed and released, and the library that we're going to use at SvelteKit behind the scenes is using a library called Satori that we may even use in our SvelteKit project as well. So I don't have a defined goal of what this project will be, but I definitely want to explore the new Next.js features, see how many I can steal for the SvelteKit apps that I have or that I maintain, or if it does make sense to go with Next.js for this. I guess it depends on how much this library performs well with edge functions. I have found the SvelteKit integration with deploying on the end being a bit finicky, but of course, creator and key contributor to SvelteKit, Rich Harris, is working with Vercel. He's literally at Vercel at the moment. So I'm sure all of these ideas will be gobbled up, and deploying on Vercel on the edge will be much better with SvelteKit in the future. Anyway, that's by the by. For a general answer to when I choose Next.js over SvelteKit, for myself, is internationalization, localization. If you need multiple languages, which you may need for an e-commerce site, for example, but you won't need for a personal blog, unless you you are willing to commit that not only are you going to update your own personal blog very often, but you also provide various languages, then I would be going with SvelteKit. So if internationalization is important, then Next.js. If performance is important, either or, they're all super good. I think I keep saying that the huge Next.js feature over SvelteKit is the localization and internationalization support. Other than that, for myself, I don't really want to boost my React CV even more, so I wouldn't be looking for more Next.js projects or SvelteKit projects or anything really. I just try to use tech that is helping me add features more and is more fun to develop. And so it doesn't really matter. But for others, you may want to build up your React experience more because it's a huge card to play. Having React can mean that you can also have app development besides web development with React Native. So that's another reason I would choose to go with Next.js, another project. And probably easier to hire for because React is bigger at the moment and will be for many, many years. It's easier to find React developers than Svelte developers. So that's the token. Now is the exploring. And of course, thanks for this question. Let me know if there are any follow-ups or if I answered it well enough. Amazing. Cool. So we've talked about this. We've talked about the Next.js SEO features. So that's an example of something that I would love to see in SvelteKit as well. The automatic font optimizations, the easier self-hosting, which you can do, of course, with SvelteKit, but everyone wants us to do like 2 commands and then it's magically done for you, which I'd love to see in SvelteKit in the future. An image component that does provide the alternatives according to the user's browser, like all of the magic that the Next.js image component. I'm sure that at some point SvelteKit will have it as well, Svelte will have it as well. And the Open Graph Image thing, maybe even today we'll see that we can just use this library and do it ourselves, so it wouldn't matter. What I didn't mention was a Turbopack. So that's the transpiler compiler. You write your code in TypeScript, for example, and then it gets compiled to a super efficient thing that actually renders on the page. That has changed for Next.js. Instead of Webpack, they got the creator of Webpack to work on this project along with other super talented people, and it's super fast. I think Webpack had become fast enough. Vite had become fast enough. Apparently this is faster than Vite, and I don't rate fastness of the transpile compile step in dev as a feature anymore. I think we're in a good enough place. It used to be that, yes, the transpilation phase was giving you enough of a break. The feedback wasn't good enough, so you had time to like be frustrated with you saved this file and it still hasn't updated on the screen, and reconsider whether you still want to be working in this company. You could be like, in these milliseconds, you could be like, what am I doing with my life? I need to go find something else, and you start looking into LinkedIn for other offers. I think nowadays it's fine. I don't think I don't think it's perceptible anymore. Maybe for super huge projects, maybe, but still, I don't think it's something we need to optimize for. I think the experience of tweaking Webpack or Vite or any bundler, that's something that can still be improved on, and not how fast this is. But a big number to have on the screen was that Turboback, the new thing. It's amazing, it's super fast, blazingler than Vite, even though Vite means speed. I guess Turbo may mean more speed. I don't know. Like they're all playing with the fastness of it. I think our tools, thankfully nowadays, are fast enough, and none of them actually check your types nowadays. That's a common trick, I guess, for them to be faster. So you still depend on your editor to update and underline that, hey, this should be a string, not an object, or whatever else. So not super excited by this. It's fun to see the tech evolve there. And, you know, maybe there will be a point where I'm like, this didn't update fast enough. I'd say the problem is usually that I saved this file and this didn't update at all. And I need to restart the server. That still happens sometimes. That's something I wouldn't be, I would be, if there was a guarantee that what you see on the screen is not the fault of you restarting the server, that's a guarantee I would pay for. Anyway, that's by the by. We will be creating a new app nowadays. It's been a while since I created a new app with this create next app script, because I usually base from my own latest and greatest site or project that I have, or I go to work and consult in a company that already has a Next.js app, and I will just be using the TypeScript boilerplate, even though there are so many, simply because I think it's a bit like a video game where they try to introduce the features step by step. You don't start Mario and Rabbids having every ability and every equipment slot and whatever. You need to slowly understand and add the features as needed. I think that's a place where Next.js and any React framework or any JavaScript framework maybe isn't doing enough, doesn't have enough opinions, doesn't have enough of here's what we're adding, here's how we can confirm you understand it and use it perfectly, but that's a different discussion. Let's run this and see now in late 2022 what we end up with when it comes to Next.js apps. Do I need to define a name? Hopefully. Let's call it BrowserCat, because there is a universe where we actually replace the SvelteKit app that we created in the last stream with the Next.js app. If because the SvelteKit app at the moment does have a separate service that it's using to run Puppeteer and take a screenshot, it'd be just easier for development to have them be in the same project. So let's explore this and see if we'll actually go for it. So everything should be installed already. We are I went to the wrong directory and I was like, how do we have all of these files? That's what happens when the autocomplete isn't quite correct. All right, so what we get nowadays is a styles directory we won't be using, the public directory, which we will be using, maybe changing the fav icon and whatnot, and a pages directory that has a Hello World API endpoint, an underscore app that wraps our whole app, and an index file. So things haven't really changed that much, and it's interesting to see that they don't ship with the new layouts system out of the box. It's quite interesting. They do have ESLint set up. I remember that being a feature in a previous Next conf for sure that I have implemented and tried out. They don't have prettier, which I do think is a necessity nowadays. But maybe that's good enough for out of the box. You have your TypeScript, you have some linen, okay, and maybe your editor has prettier anyway, so it may be fine enough. And interestingly, they're pointing to specific versions of things, which works great with projects like Renovate. And at this moment, I will take my noodle timer and start it for 25 minutes. Stelio, nice to see you here. Thank you very much for watching and for this comment, and for calling me charismatic, most of all, because, you know, it's all about the face, really. Let me fix my hair and keep at it. So not pinning the versions and not doing carré, which you may have seen in the past, which I still do out of maybe bad habit in my projects, has been getting more common because tools like RenovateBot, which will look at whether your dependencies have got newer releases, those tools do work with specific versions there. But again, that's another different thing to talk about maybe in the future. And I did mention we'll try to run this with Turboback, which maybe, let me run it up here so you can actually see it. Run dev should run the app without Turbopack, so probably fast enough. Let's see how it looks. It looks like this, fair enough. And I think if we do turbo is how we get Turbopack. Maybe. Did it feel faster? Are we using Turbopack? Is it a placebo effect? Turbo. Let's see how we actually run it. Next dev dash turbo. We didn't pass the variable there. So I guess we can go to our package.json and say when we run next dev, actually pass the turbo flag here instead of passing it here. With npm, we need to have done this. But now we can just do npm run dev. We get the nice Turbopack here. And we need to close any window that's not started with turbo. Interestingly enough. Start again. And yeah, the numbers are smaller. The numbers will be meaningless since this app has nothing in it. So I don't think there is anything you can do. I suppose the difference is the performance benefits would only be visible if you have a meaningfully large app, like we did at Zoopla, for example. The case Premier Place, best designed website to look for listings, rents, and rentings, properties, things to buy, houses to buy. Anyway, yeah, is it faster? No, we don't even have a different page to look into. We do have the API endpoint, this one, hello world, great. Again, it won't be meaningfully faster, like it can give us the milliseconds there, 0.3 milliseconds. I've never seen this in my life, but it's such a light app to start with that it doesn't really matter. Cool. So, Turbopack, it works. We did this. Now the fun stuff, we want to do the OG image generation. So they do have some examples to show how it works. You share on social media, on Discord and whatever, and you get back something like this on the right. You should get an image like this, but I guess sized for the perfect social media size, which is not this ratio, but you'll get the idea. I wonder why they don't start with the classic social one. Anyway, they do have a couple examples. This one has a nice gradient to it, both on the background and the letters, which looks quite cool. This one has a pattern, a background image here. This one, I don't really remember what it's showing. Roche G, fonts, emojis, some Greek here. That's always important to be able to support. Tailwind implementation as well, which I tried to have a look at the code and I don't quite understand how it works. I see this magic TW thingy. Is that what makes it bring in Tailwind? If you have a Tailwind config, will it look into it? I do think that the social preview images should be simple enough for you to be able to design it with like inline styles, I guess, if it comes to that, like this. So one of the cases where, you know, do you really need Tailwind? Probably not for the social images. But then if it can actually read your Tailwind config, which I'm not sure how it would be doing, it would be nice because I do think it's a great skill. It's very nice to develop using Tailwind. It keeps you in the HTML when you want to be in the HTML. You don't want to go into your style tag and do your style designs there. At least I don't. We can talk about whether you zip more kilobytes or not with Tailwind or not. Depending on how you use it, I'd say you end up zipping less. Anyway, that's by the by. If you do have developers that are experienced with Tailwind, maybe they can knock these things out of the park easier without needing to think about how do we do this with inline styles. But again, these open graph images, dynamic images, are all built on the idea that you build them once and that's it. You're good to go forever. So I would think you can spend the time trying to do the inline styles and once and that's it. Then again, if this just works, then spend less time and get the same result and be more consistent with your brand. So we may go for it. All right, cool. So what they're saying is that we need to bring in this library. So let's go to the terminal, install this. And then I assume they suggest that we have an endpoint somewhere. They namespace it against the OG. You can namespace it against the social preview or something, but maybe OG makes sense. Follow standards if it makes sense to do so. And it's interesting to see that this API endpoint has the X for JSX as well. I guess because this is not HTML, it's something that looks like HTML, it's JSX. So let's create that. So instead of our hello endpoint, let's create our own OGTSX. And see the underlines here. Because their example does not pass their own ESLint recommendations. Do they want this to be like blur? Yes. This should be important. So for some reason, you can only run this on experimental LEDs, and I don't know why. Maybe it has to do with what the image response thing returns. Maybe some casting options. I don't really know. But you do need the experimental LEDs runtime for this. You need to deploy on the edge, which is good because, again, that's something you can put in your CV, or if you're asked, then you will be able to answer that, yes, I have deployed on the edge. I'll have you know, like the Johnny logged in to my demo site that I pasted to him in the Discord, and he got it from the Spain server and not the UK server at the moment, because that's where I'm coding from. Anyway, let's open localhost again and go to our API OG. Interesting. What did it not like? Very, very interesting. Did we do anything different? So what we pasted was this, like, never mind the ESLint problems. Does this crash equally? Looks like yes. So yeah, that's something I did not expect. If I just return hello here, do we get something? Or do I need to return a string? A response in the string. We're waiting too long with Turbopack. I'd imagine we shouldn't need to. It would be funny if this feature works with the old Webpack 5 bundler and not the New Turbopack. Yeah, nothing there. So what was in our hello world thingy? Ah, yeah, it works quite different. So I think let's give it one more chance to get it together. And we can also bring in this and the types. Even though we won't be using them, I wish they would be able to type the handler, I guess. Let's restart the server. And it does immediately give us this. I guess it doesn't really wait for too long. So it's a problem with Ayman's response, I guess. What happens if I don't Turbopack this? It works! So that's amazing. I wonder if in the keynote or somewhere they said Turbopack, they do say it's experimental and it's like in beta, and that's why it's under a flag. But it's quite funny that one of the big things that they also revealed doesn't work with Webpack. I guess in production, if you manage to deploy this, it will work. It's all about the development experience. But we did make it to the hello world, and just to prove that this is actually dynamic, I guess at some point we'll want to make this part dynamic. So because it's an image, I do need to manually refresh. Push that in. Nicely on the side. Open the inspector as well, just to not have my face cover this. So by default, I think even if we don't provide these things, we will get the... will we not get the default width and height? Slightly different. And let's render some divs inside divs. So we've done the main thing they ask of web devs. We've centered some content here. So maybe we're good enough. But it seems to be working. I guess taking inspiration... Oh, it didn't have a dynamic name. The way we'd want this to work is that what we did in the previous app was take us a title, a subtitle, and a count. And then we had like a heart in the corner. So let's try to recreate that, I suppose. Let me just mention this. Here, let's recreate a decent template at 33 minutes in. And should we try to steal something from the nice Vercel docs? I do like this gradient. And I see each word has a different color, but we can steal this. And say that our div has this style. If I refresh, then it goes from like this blue to white. And we can even go to Tailwind without having Tailwind and just look at the color palette. And then pick maybe Next.js have done like content that's blue, so let's keep this one. Let's say from light sky blue to almost white. Is it too much? do you do bottom right? Linear gradient CSS bottom right. I think there is a keyword for that. Turn. I've seen degrees before. I hadn't seen turn. It's quite fun. So saying to bottom right should make it go white just on bottom right. Maybe not. Maybe I just made this up. Maybe it should be to right bottom. Maybe not. Did I eat anything else? Did I eat like a comma doing this? To right also works. But two keywords there do not work. How come? This one should work. Maybe proving while that maybe I do need Tailwind for this. Could have made it easier. Just copy this. How can I not like this? Yeah, for some reason, it doesn't like this thing. Oh well, maybe that's what inline styles doesn't like supporting. Doesn't matter that much. Let's keep the two bottom colors and maybe let's make it a bit darker to start with. I can't get away from my poor designer self and keep tweaking all these values. Alright, let's say we've done this. And for the hello word, we want this to be dynamically dynamic title here. Somehow. And then we want a dynamic subtitle. And then we want a hard count. Can I have divs within divs? I can only imagine yes. So let's just say that's 32. Doesn't matter if it's divs or spans, because what you get in the end is an image, so you don't mind this being accessible or semantically correct or anything like that. So maybe this is the one that's 32, and this is the one that's an emoji for a heart. I imagine you can render SVGs here as well. Went too far. Is it the emoji? So it likes this. Likes this, it flips out with this. I guess it's the span, so it's not. Is the divs within divs? I guess so. What if it was span? Would be fine. Does it only allow for one level of nesting? Maybe. Maybe that's what it is. So just one div and that's it. So you get. Looks like it. Let's call it div. Let's see if the emoji heart does go on. I don't know why it's upset with this. But yeah, we do get the emoji. I do get the feeling that if we were to deploy this, it wouldn't actually render the emoji in the image. It's only rendering now because it's rendering on my computer, which does have emoji fonts, but the Edge serverless function will not have emojis there. So unless it's doing something for us, unless this library is doing something for us automatically, it shouldn't be able to render this emoji. Which is a problem we did come at with the Puppeteer screenshotting solution that we had ourselves. So yeah, maybe we don't want all of these. Maybe we want this title have like a font size 128 or something. And then this one becomes 72 or something. And this one is also 72. And maybe everything should have color white. And maybe we want a border like this. I try to squint at my screen. Right, so if I make it anything but black, this may work better for me. So let's have a bright cyan there. One of the bright ones. I like framing these things with some color. If you notice, my thumbnails for the YouTube videos are like this as well. And they have a color depending on whether they are lives or mostly about Svelte or mostly about Next.js. And cyan was the Next.js color. That's a little behind the scenes trivia for you. And this looks fine. Let's move on to making this dynamic. So I guess this thing takes a response parameter, which I did copy previously from the other file. So this has the request first, which is the next API request. And I'm hoping that this is where I'd be able to get request query parameters. So if I hit this with title equals hello everyone, the dynamic title should become hello everyone if I manage to get it somewhere, somehow. GitHub Copilot is claiming that I can get the query from here. I'll believe that. And if that's the case, not quite. Is query not a thing? What's query supposed to be? Next.js search query params. Let's find it. Not like that. Next.js adds functions query params. Search params. Oof, interesting. You do it by building the URL like this. So this should be something. Surely that's always defined. Surely TypeScript is kinda wrong here. In any case, let's get the title now. Alright, so looks like this works. And for some reason, I'm not too happy with the title here. Get default values, because I want to do this sanity check that surely we don't need to do. That's probably a wrong type. And maybe just do a ternary here. If we have a rec URL, we do something where title is maybe we cannot actually inline this, or it would be hard to read. Because we don't want to do this. I'll do the check. So if no request URL, then just return a title of whatever title we had before, the name of your project, subtitle, for everyone, count is 42. But if request URL is a thing, that's when we'll be doing the search params, destructuring from the URL. Then, I guess what we return is similar. But all of these are gonna be search params get the string of this and add commas here. So don't do this, but do this by passing the request to our new getDefaultValues method. Use the title here, and this still works. Cool. And I guess we don't need to default here on the title anymore. And for the subtitle, we want to do the same thing. Did I call it subtitle? Didn't call it anything yet. Count. And destructure these two things as well. So by default, we get the same thing. Guess not. What's its problem? Did it not like this? I have a feeling that maybe it didn't like this. So it doesn't like doing the variable thing here. Maybe it doesn't like that this is a number. No, it just doesn't like that this is separate. Which is interesting again. Is it because it's putting it in a different div the moment I do the curly brackets? So if this is the letters count, it's fine. But if I'm saying do some JSX, do some JavaScript here, then it flips out. Interesting, to put it mildly. And again, we did find out that this just doesn't work, like divs within divs. It's like faux pas, don't do it. So I guess for now, the easiest thing could be that we put these two divs above and below each other, and we'll figure out how to align them eventually. Only this one will be the count. So this is quite interesting. This means that there may still be value in doing the browser screenshots, because if you cannot easily put divs within divs, which seems to be the case, as nuts as this sounds, then you can't really do things like GitHub does. So let's go to our GitHub TechieCat repository and go into my meta tag preview thingy. And I keep demoing this as a great social preview image. You have the custom name of the repo, the description of the repo, how many contributors it has, the stars, issues, all of this is dynamic. You also have the GitHub watermark, because it's GitHub to remind you what the platform is. Even the image for the project, which happens to be my avatar, I guess, defaults to that one, to the organization. And how easily would you do this without divs within divs? I don't know. And how would you do this thing? So these colored lines is the amount of Svelte, the amount of TypeScript, I guess, the amount of CSS or HTML, like these two things must be one or the other. Maybe this is vanilla JavaScript and this is CSS. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This seems like a hard thing to do without being able to put divs within divs. So I'm curious to know if that's indeed a limitation at the moment of this. Do any of the examples have divs within divs? Maybe not. This div has an SVG in it, which has a path in it, but it's still single child, one child. All right, this div has two spans. So it seems we do have the technology. It's doing this square. Squares within squares. So that's an example that looks like it's doing the thing we want. And the Tailwind example of all things, those do the divs within divs. This is fair enough. I don't know why you'd have like a social image that has buttons that you can't click, but I guess it's just an example. I did open this, and for the life of me, I don't know how does it import Tailwind. So this is the Tailwind example, and you'll notice that it has this weird TW. Does that mean that this library scans the JSX, and if it finds TW, it knows it's Tailwind classes and it just works? I guess we'll find out afterwards. Let's say we did recreate like our small template here, and then we can mess with emojis and custom fonts. But I will switch to the face view in the chat to see if there are any other things that you're curious about. You want to ask me, and take a small, tiny coffee break. Coffee's good. So what have we done? Let's say that break here. Sun break, maybe. I did upgrade to Ventura, the latest macOS version just yet. Maybe next time we'll set up like my iPhone to do the continuity camera. You can now see my keyboard type of thing, but it doesn't really matter. It did look fun in the demo, so I do want to try out, but I don't actually have a place where I can mount my iPhone here. But who knows? Maybe we'll manage it. So we're doing the break. We'll investigate what they say about emojis here. Maybe we can try to deploy this. Yeah, let's do deployment first. Let's set up yet another project quickly. So let's go to the agenda. So next up, new GitHub project as Vercel deploy. So we'll do that because I'm very curious to see if the Vercel deployment actually works and shows this. Does it show the heart? I'm curious. And let's not forget, shouldn't this be defaulting to 42? I guess. We're not defaulting here. Is that why we had a problem? Let's find out. So const default title. And use it here or here. Can I extract like variable? Was this faster than what I did before? Not sure, but I like using shortcuts. Let's try once more. So now it should be defaulting to something. Great. Now that this is not undefined, that this is defined, can I put it in here? No. But why? Some say we'll never know. I'll keep trying this. So, sir, if I put another div here, also doesn't like it. If I put a span here, also crashes. If I put nothing here, it's fine. Finicky, to put it mildly. All right, so enough of this break. Let's create this project. Maybe 58 minutes in. We're on GitHub. Let's create a new repository. Let's call it BrowserCat Next. Because maybe we'll end up going with this. Screenshotting social preview image service. Public, and all of that, sure. Copy all of this. And maybe on the README, say this. Do we still have the description somewhere here? No, lost forever. Oh well. No, I'm doing the classic of not sharing my screen. Sony. Oh no. So you didn't miss much. I was just trying to put these into divs and spans and more divs, and it kept crashing here on the right. So not much. And I went to GitHub, pressed the plus icon for new repository, and I'm just modifying my README now. Next.js. We don't want this. And let's be honest, like on our index, do we want all of this? Probably not. just to add a bit more flavor. Let's see how the main page looks as well. Does it look too silly? Nah, look kinda nice, to be honest. It's black and white. And yeah, I guess let's use fat arrows everywhere for consistency. Where was it using images before? Next.js image for the Vercel logo at the end. Interesting. Even SVGs they're passing to Next.js image. So I trust that the Vercel SVG is not used anywhere else. So I can actually delete it. Add these commits, say new project, start, new project. And publish the main branch by copying this, going to a terminal, pushing. Let me start my timer in the meantime for 25 more minutes. And now we know the deal. Vercel dashboard, add new project with GitHub. Oof, need to redo it, I guess. No, just fine. Browser cut next. It's an Next.js project. No environment variables for now. I think this will just work. Let's see how fast the deployment is. And once that's done, I want to see if going to the equivalent of this page will give us an emoji or not. I suspect it's 50-50. If the library is doing something to account for emojis by default without you specifying an option, then it's gonna work. If not, so here it's saying that default tweet emoji supported options are those. I did bring in the Noto color emojis for the other project we were doing, but here it's doing the Twitter emoji, I guess. That must be it. So if it's defaulting to that one, it should just work without us doing anything. Oof, didn't build. Didn't build. Because I messed up this component, surely. The one thing I changed. It happens. Let's pretend this never happened by doing an amend comment and force pushing. And hopefully it will work. Let's go back to the dashboard. It has this. It has the browser cut next. Just push this. This should work. I guess I'd find out if I were to run the next build here locally. Yeah, looks just fine. On the edge, I like the mirrored epsilon here. Cool. Deployed. Page is there. So the question is, if we go to API OG title can even add like more emojis here. Yeah, doesn't look amazing. It's like too big, but it looks like it does support emojis by default. So that's good. Apparently, from what we've seen in this image response thingy, we can pass in emoji and say Noto, for example, if we want them to look different. Do like the Noto, they have like a bit more depth, although I do like the flat design of the Twitter emojis, but that's by the by, according to what you may want. Looks like it's that easy to support emojis in that you don't have to do anything. It defaults to the Twitter emoji style by default. Defaults that one, and it gives too many defaults in that sense. I do like the Noto one, although I haven't really tried the others. Oh, too flat. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if they support fewer emojis. Classic old school Android ones. I guess you need the blob to really understand, to really see the beauty of these, or the horror of them. Open emoji, cute. Reminds me of cel-shaded style. The other two didn't seem to work. I'll go with this one. Cool. I guess you'd want safeguards to make this, to make sure that you get ellipses or something if the text is too long, to not result in a horrible image like this one. But that's by the by. Some padding would be nice as well. So 16 more pixels of padding. And of course, it is fine to go with, you should go with pixels on this one and not rem, because this shouldn't depend on the user settings. The user will not be hitting this image directly. The Twitter bot or whatever they have there, the scraper, will be hitting it to display it for the user, but it won't be according to user settings. So go with pixels, go for pixel perfect design for these. I see a huge spike in the concurrent viewers, which makes me ask, hello, how come you're dropping by, what you're hoping to see, what the agenda is, now that we see that emojis are indeed working. How can we use custom fonts? That's the functionality that we want to hit on next. So let's see. I wonder which font do they use by default. I guess we'll find out if we look. You can bring in a font that you have somewhere in your project. And it does take a font family. What's the default font family for this? I don't know. The one we deployed, does it look the same? I guess it looks kind of different. So I'm not sure which is the default font this library is using. But let's try this. Let's search for font elsewhere as well in the page, just in case they have something about using the regular web fonts, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So, typewriter font, which one is that? I want to see if Google Fonts has it. It doesn't. So I'm wondering, do they support like every Google font by default? Let's find a weird one. Let's find a weird one, not Montserrat. I do like Montserrat though. So if I say font family, Montserrat here, will it switch? Maybe not. Let's find a even weirder one. Let's find a handwriting or display font. Fast hand. Surely no one has this. So if I were to say fast hand here, doesn't sense. Cool. And oh, it does escape the font with double quotes, which is interesting. Still no difference. All right. Is there a font that we actually would want to use? Or I guess we can do both. So let's download this font. Download this family. And so in Finder. And also go somewhere in our project, but where exactly? So this one, it goes to the assets directory, which is interesting. Assets directory. They just made this up though. So from here, they go to the root assets. And by default, there is no assets directory. So not the public directory. Could be anything. I'll make a fonts directory, I guess. And reveal that in Finder. And then drop this one here. And we only want this, I guess. We can just keep it in here in any case. So now in our project, we should have this. Copy relative path. And what this claims is that we can import with fetch, of all things, this relative directory. This is like the new node word for sure. Is it the ES build word? Who knows? And here I want to paste the relative path. It should be correct. And then I can pass this. Ooh, every time this request gets loaded, I wait. Every time this executes, it awaits for this. It's interesting. And then we need to specify that here in our image response options, that we're also passing a font called fasthand. Nothing tricky in the name there, I guess. And the style, it's not normal. What's normal? Normal. It's a handwriting font, right? No, display font, it claims. Style. What's style? Normal or italic. Alright, so that's style. Now we know. It is indeed normal, I guess. And now, if I refresh, I get it. And even if we deploy, we do get this ugly font. So let's deploy this just to prove that it works. There is the license for this font. It's probably we don't want. So this is interesting. If you do have a service that generates social images, you may want to have the user upload their own custom font there. So then you'll need to request it. So fetch would make more sense than looking at it on the file system in my old developer head. But in any case, let's say that make text less legible, and then we can find a different font for us in the end. And I suppose this is the domain. It does look like Turboback, does look cool. Title is gonna be custom font, and subtitle it works, and count is 72. It works, indeed. It doesn't look great, so we can switch back to your favorite font for this. But that's huge, actually. I found that getting custom fonts to work, even with our browser-based solution, was a real pain. I would be embedding a web font in the layout in order for the Puppeteer, which is running on a Linux machine at that point, to have the font available that we want. But this is relatively easy. You have the TrueType font, you put it in your repo, you commit it, you load it with this that may look a bit weird, but it's kind of makes sense. And it just works. Sweet. Right, so use a legible custom font. So it works. Use a legible custom font is what we'll be doing next. I don't know if you have any recommendations of which one you like. It may be cool to have like a handwriting and normal font. Let's remember from our previous one, we had fuzzy bubbles. How does that look? Yeah, quite nice. And Montserrat is of course a classic. And we could use both. Let's do that. Let's download fuzzy bubbles. Download all, I guess. So in Finder, once again, unzip, and then we only want these two. We should already have this directory open from our project. Don't want this. And Montserrat and fuzzy bubbles. Just to the regular one. Montserrat. What does it say here? Variable font. What's the difference? Italic. Don't want italic. And maybe I guess we don't want a variable font here, so Montserrat regular should do for us. this like cut and paste shortcut doesn't actually work for me. This is unexpected. Let's reveal this one in Finder again. And bring in Montserrat regular here. That's all we want. We do not even want fast hand anymore. We want this. We know it's Montserrat, we can call it Montserrat font. And do the same for as bubbles. Copy relative path. And now load those. Let's call it what it is. And then Montserrat is gonna be this. And fuzzy bubbles is gonna be this. I do wonder, do I need to escape this? What's the problem? I have that here. Do I need to escape this? Maybe. But by default, we'll have Montserrat. And let's say just for the subtitle here on family, fuzzy bubbles. See if that works. Cool. So most of this is Montserrat, but we have this playful text here as a subtitle. So the subtitle is with a handwriting style. Quite cool. And can I do this plain line block here? No. Can I only do flex? Flex with flex? Yes. And I will try once more. So it should be happy with an empty div. It is. But the moment I put this in the div, it flips out. Yeah. I don't know, we'll try Tailwind next and see if we have more luck with that. I don't think we would. So we deleted this font, we added two more, and we're loading and using them. Hopefully that was fun to try out. And I think this is something we can deploy, but we don't need to wait to try out because we can move on. Did all of this to Tailwind. So 125 in. Question is, can we just use Tailwind? Because it looks like in their examples that they have like this magic TW directive and somehow it works. So what can I tell you? And they have like divs and h2s and like everything goes there. So let's say that instead of style here, you have Tailwind, and then this is text 6 XL, indeed. 4 XL? Just works. Interesting. How does it work? We don't have a Tailwind config here, which is the thing that would confuse me. So I'm all for using Tailwind, but if it's not consistent with your own Tailwind config, so if you have specified a primary color, for example, instead of using directly gray or cyan or whatever else, that could be problematic. So I'm interested to know. Experimental feature. Yeah, so interesting for sure that this is supported. It says experimental feature. I do wonder if they'll make it work with Tailwind config. But this is amazing. How high does this go? Not to that extent. Let's open Tailwind here. Font size, their biggest one is 9 XL. Which is what we were doing, actually. It's quite interesting. Apparently this... we would need a Tailwind config for this, given we have the fuzzy bubbles font. Can it do custom attributes? Let's see. So if we do 7XL, we should get the same size, but not the font that we want. But if we do font fuzzy bubbles, will it just work? Nah, magic doesn't go that far. Which is fair enough, so keep this style tag there. I guess what may be interesting, no style here, no style here, still works. A div here, why does this crash? I don't understand. If this wasn't dynamic, it also crashes. I don't get it. And they must be doing something their own example here. Yeah, because they have like this type of situation with stacked buttons. So let's copy this thing wholesale. Leave this at a kind of working place. But then in the end, let's add this. And this works. Is it because we made this flex? So if this, we made Tailwind flex, and then drag this into it. Wow, so it has to do with the div specifying layout, I guess. So even without Tailwind, if I said style, I think I tried to do this, but maybe not. If I said this display flex, this would also work. All right, so good to know. If you want to nest divs inside divs, which is an essential feature to have more than one div inside another, and then you need to specify again that it's a flex container, not a block or whatever that is. All right, good to know in any case. Good to know. And we can change this to Tailwind classes again. This is the size we want. It's Next.js. And we want this to be on the bottom right. So actually, flex grow 1 for this. Should this be a number? Okay, slipped grow 1. So this pushes it to the end, and this flex end, items end, item center but justify end. This is also something that would be easier to do if this wasn't elements, this weren't elements. Justify end. Yeah, this looks like a thing. But what do we need? Like, if I made this grow, like an empty div that grows, it would push it to the end. No, interesting. So why is that? Why is this? Do we need a W full here? Yeah, right, so that's what we needed. But we also need a way to specify the items end. And this looks correct, so I'm not quite sure. Oh well, with the hidden div that grows should be fine enough. And this makes me think that even this one, I want it to grow and be like left aligned. Cool. And maybe have a bit of a margin. Or maybe this, like the justify content is the thing I don't want. Align items, do I want that? Maybe I don't want that one either. Color is interesting. So interestingly, this does translate to rem, but I guess that will be the default. Just thinking out loud. And maybe this should be a different color, like a nice red heart color. How do you do color with text? I thought it would be like text and then the color, but maybe not. Since it's Tailwind, we can use this too. I guess this heart should be an SVG anyway, and then you can have it be the same color instead of an emoji, but that's by the by. Maybe give it a lime green. Make it as unfriendly as possible, unreadable as possible. I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise. Right, so give it a bit more margin. Alright, let's say that this doesn't look too bad. We'll get a professional designer at some point. keep supporting the channel, and I will actually get someone, depending on the how big the channel is. Maybe we start from like Fiverr, then we go to contractors I've worked with that have a bigger fee, and then I don't know, we have a Mr. Beast style huge worldwide competition of who designs this, and they get $1 million or something. But for now, this is what we get. Me on design work, me on design duty. But yeah, so Tailwind, experimental Tailwind support, looks like it works. And we managed to align the divs and put divs inside divs by using display flex on the parent div. So if we don't use that, it flips out. If you want to nest divs inside divs, you need to specify display flex. You don't need to use Tailwind, which we're doing here, this weird trick, but you do need to specify the parent div to have display flex, as I understand it. All right, anything else that we can move to Tailwind? I'm not gonna move these just because they specify the font family and it doesn't look like I can use custom attributes here with Tailwind. So I think this is it. Style with Tailwind. And I think we can do one more break to recap and see what we're left with for the agenda. Keep letting me know what you'd like me to try out. Maybe we won't try this now, we'll see. So behind the scenes, I understand that this library, the Vercel OG one, is using a library called Satori. Because they're saying refer to Satori's documentation, and Satori is indeed also a Vercel project. So I imagine it's using the same thing. And it looks like they are bringing in Roboto here. Interesting, if you're using Node and not Node.js functions, you can use the file system to bring this in. Kinda interesting. And this may mean that we can bring this over to our SvelteKit app and use this library here. Maybe even without JSX, maybe with JSX, who knows. That could be a problem or something to try out in a different stream, not specifically a problem. And I wonder what else do they have, did they build in the Tailwind support on top of Satori, or does this include it? I can't see it. Wasm. Yeah, I did start this to have a look at it in the future, but for now, I don't think we'll actually investigate it. Let's say one small break again. Switch to the camera view and hopefully remember to switch back to the desktop view for the last leg of the stream, I imagine. It may be most interesting to have like a quick look on how to do layouts, I guess, although that's gonna be the most work, but we can have a base layout file or something and try to load an image in it and try to put a font in it. I'm not sure. We'll see. But maybe doing the font one makes sense. And immediately I will switch back to my view, desktop view, once again, because I think it's time to close everything. And search for font here. So this should work with any font that's in Google Fonts, plus local fonts that you can load like this, which we have seen. Is that supposed to be in the fonts directory that we created or collocated here, or should it be on the assets directory? It's interesting. We can try it out. That may be cool to try out. And I see HTML here, so I can only imagine that there's going to be one component that uses this. Oof, there's none. So by default, it seems this project has given us an underscore app tsx, but the HTML should be part of the custom document. So let's have a find there, custom document, bam. Where else could it be? So you import the font and then I imagine it inlines the CSS, or maybe the font itself. Can install this in any case. And then, it's using layouts. Oh, it's using the new layouts already. Amazing. And let's see if they have any other documentation on layouts. So maybe first we will quick refactor to layouts coming up. And then we'll bring in the font, and then we'll try an image. So it used to be that with Next.js it was very complicated to do different layouts. So if you had like your marketing page and your dashboard once the user has converted and that sort of thing, it was quite a hassle to have components pick a different layout. There was a way, there was a recommended way to do it. There was a TypeScript enabled way to do it, but I still found it a hassle, and it was quite even trickier to do nested layouts in the way that's done now by SvelteKit, and it was done with React Router. I think one of the best things that came out with from the React Router project, besides React Router itself, which I'm sure many people are using, and not going with Next.js or something like that, is the way they've done their layout and data fetching and that sort of thing. Discussion for a different time, but as it happens with all sorts of projects like this, great ideas emerge and they converge into everyone. So everyone gets inspired by everyone else, and the best ideas stick and get improved upon. And it seems like that's what happened here with the Next.js layouts. So the other thing that I would have liked to see with Next.js is having everything that's source code be nested in a source code directory, which I have done in other projects in Next.js, but people do get confused when I saw it in the videos, because most people start from a starter or the boilerplate that doesn't have things nested in source directory. So I'm not gonna do it now, but maybe that's not the problem anymore, because you locate everything into app. So maybe it's solving that problem in a different way, which is exciting. And then is this a lot to read live? Maybe. But it looks like all I need is a page.js, no plus in the beginning, so we're not doing SvelteKit. So instead of pages directory, I guess there is an app directory. Instead of an underscore app, or let's see what they're doing there. How do you also have serverless functions while you have this? So view this repo, see what they have. They have the app directory, no pages directory. And does that mean that they don't have an API route here as a demo? They do have a lib directory, which I do dislike. Not thrilled. UI, yeah, all of this, like if you're not going to collocate it in your app directory, you need the source directory for all of this. You need an easy way to understand what's config and what's code that if you tell a developer you need to amend this, you're most likely gonna need to amend things that are in your source directory. You need something to group. You need something to point developers to easily know what they're supposed to mess with and what they aren't. But that's by the by, I guess. My question is, how do you do endpoints with this? I don't really know. And they do have an app directory which has a page that returns a component like the underscore app component, I guess, that replaces the underscore app component. And then there is a layout which may return HTML. All right, so this probably replaces custom document. So this may be what we want. It's the default export, so it doesn't really matter. So everything that's here, let's put it in an app page tsx. Return this. No types for this, sadly. What does it take? It takes nothing. What does it render though? Where does it inject the content? Is it in the demos directory? It renders children. Right. Alright, I do want to see more about TypeScript support. Surely they have a type for this. I'm trying to magically search for layout, but it doesn't quite work. Now, easier to do stuff with layouts, great, but how do you do it? I can't see how. I guess I should just type it myself. Oh well, if I have to do it, I do it. Right, so here, I guess let's still import this and actually const page equals this arrow method, arrow here, Right, what did we have before? We had this index component, so this should change nothing. So app was importing this, which I guess would be part of the layout. And then our page can do nothing and just return children and be done with it. Yes. Or should this be the index? I guess that's probably more likely. And it doesn't have children, right? So the layout component has children, and this one is just what you want to render, which should be this. All right, so let's bring in this here. Where did I bring in? From where did I bring in this? Huh. That probably becomes the layout. I'm trying to figure it out on the fly. Hey Anne, good night. From my side as well, we're close to evening here because it's getting dark quite fast nowadays, sadly. So I don't think I'll need to import this here. I will be importing just these styles. But this is too many things. So let's just remove this. No styles, no class names. Just say welcome to BrowserCat and call it a day. We won't be needing search params or browse params for this, so I don't know why I did this. So just really add a very rudimentary index page here, but we want to render this in a layout TSX, I can only imagine, which should look something like this. I do like fat arrow methods, so I will change this into a fat arrow method, inline and return. Say that this is the base root layout, maybe a better way to call it. And nest them in nothing. But no, actually, this is where we want to have the HTML. Most probably. Yeah. So this would render nothing on the page. That would be scary. What we actually want is HTML. And how do I do head tags? I'd imagine that since I can render the body here, I can just render the head here. No? Can only imagine that's the case. Which means that all of these tags, maybe I can put in here. And we can do the font loading, which is what we started with in this section. So maybe we did say we want to bring in, where were we? It's at next/font, but I want to find the example here. Which is the structure of this. Interesting. need to call this? But actually, I want Montserrat. How much of Montserrat is it gonna bring? It's another question. Is it like every? That may be a bit much. We can find out afterwards. So let's say Montserrat font. But we know that we may also want the other one, the fancy bubbles. This one. What argument do you want? Just empty? Is it happy now? So yeah, it looks like you need to explicitly say 400 for this one for some reason. And the class name can be this plus this. And now with horror, let's go to our homepage, or maybe let's leave bravely and delete underscore app and underscore index. Does this still work? Yes. But if I go to localhost 3000, cannot be found. Interesting. Is it because I have this directory, the pages directory, plus pages? Let's call it something else. Do I need to restart the server? Ah, it's an experimental feature, so I need to enable it like this, like so. Cool. So in the next config, add this, start the server, all right. So it seems like it added more things for TypeScript now that we started. The homepage works, but of course now this won't work. And if I just have a pages API, will it work? Will it look at both? Maybe not. But if I put the API directory in the app directory, maybe not. Delete pages. Restart the server just in case. Thank you for testing app directory. Great. Yeah, doesn't work. Let's see. So API route with app directory Next.js. Jorge, hello again. Great to see you this week as well. And you're working on a blackjack app with React, and then try Next.js, which is also React. I do have a playlist on creating an app with Next.js, which you may be able to find in my channel. I think I started it maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, which may still have things that are helpful. I will be doing more Next.js stuff, especially if I try these things out and I find that they work. So yeah, let me know what you'd like to see. Let me know which of the videos you do find useful from that older playlist. I think some will be applicable, but if there are any gaps, if there are things you'd like to see, let me know and I'd love to do more videos about that. But once again, I love SvelteKit as well, but I love Next.js. I do think for your CV, I'll say again, React is a harder, a more heavy, more impressive card to have than Svelte at the moment. So of course, trying to do more things with Next.js will always do you good. Doing things with SvelteKit as well will also do you good. But nobody needs to be worse than the other, I guess, in this case, is what I'm trying to say. No time is lost trying either framework, and I'd love to do more tutorials regarding both. And what you ask me to do the most, that's the most that I want to provide, because most of all I want to help real people solve real problems that they're experiencing and expanding their knowledge. Sometimes I will indulge myself to get into a rabbit hole. Mostly I want to explore, but that's quite rare. I keep that for offline stuff. All right, so I'm trying to Google how to use the API routes with the app directory. Do they have something here? So in Pages API. Will it be an issue on GitHub or something? This is definitely hard to Google. Loaded the font this time. So it's nice to see that working. But this, what can we do here? Let's retry. Restart the server for one. I think it was happy with this. We're using app directory. It's fine. Doesn't quite work. Let's create a pages directory. Once again. Put the API directory inside there once again, and restart the server once again. It is saying you're using experimental latest runtime, so it must have found the file. Oh. It just works. I guess all it needed was a server restart. So I guess your API routes are still inside the pages directory /API, but then your UI is inside the app directory. I do find this kind of confusing. So let me try my old trick, which is put in various files inside the source directory and see if that still works. I know that pages can go there. These are not really source code. I guess styles can go in there, even though we'll remove it. But the big question is, does the app directory go inside the source directory? Let's see. Yes. No. No, it does work. It's just that this is a bit further back. All right. So we can say subtitle app directory for the win. Or actually, source directory for the win. So yeah, that's something that Next.js doesn't do by default. I don't see many boilerplates doing this, but it's just so much handier for me. Keep everything inside a source directory. Don't have like random lib directories everywhere. Just try to keep everything in here. Then the public directory can become stuff that you want to host elsewhere. And I just made up this fonts directory that houses the fonts. Doesn't really matter. I guess I could be collocating this inside here, but then I need an underscore for that directory. Again, doesn't really matter. I think this may be it. We can try to deploy, or we can try to make this a bit nicer. So interestingly, now it doesn't change the font. I wonder why. Is it because of this? So a question may be, I'm not importing this global CSS. Maybe a last step for the day could be adding Tailwind, which I've done quite a few videos with. We won't be doing next events, loading states and all of that, but maybe some other time. I have talked about this actually now. So this kind of happened in the tail end of the previous section. And now what I want to do is bring in Tailwind. So let's do it live, unprepared, but I've done this many times, so it should be straightforward, mostly because we go to Tailwind CSS and search for Next. It's like, oh, here's how you do it. And they've created an app, doesn't really matter. They install these as dev dependencies, which is interesting. It seems like most of the Next.js docs had these installed, had even dev dependencies installed as normal dependencies. But that's by the by. Now we want to install this. It should have created a couple files for us. And they have this thing, created this Tailwind file, and we need to specify the content directory. A great thing with the way I do it with the source directory is that you don't need to repeat yourself like this. Just do content, scan for source, everything's in source. And that's about it. And now, oh, there is a style global CSS. So let's bring that back. And bring in the Tailwind defaults, the Tailwind directives. And I guess maybe we don't want to add anything here at the moment. And now, will Tailwind have worked? Looks like the answer so far is no. If I restart the server, we'll never know if it would have worked, because in this layout file, the root layout, we should have imported the globals thingy. So what was it doing here? Importing this. So let's do the same thing. Import styles, global CSS. We missed. All right, we made it. It's a bit big, but we made our point. And maybe, what happens if we put it in this directory? I think we can collocate anything here, just for easiness, and call it like globals CSS. Don't have a styles directory. Bring in from here. And maybe a 6 XL is enough. It seems it half works, it half doesn't. Oh well. The last thing I want to do is investigate this flickering. Sometimes we get one font on the or sometimes we get another. And if we look at the way you can do font families in Tailwind, you can actually specify something like this. So instead of extend in the theme key on Tailwind CSS, we can say that our sans font is Montserrat, and then the whatever default theme font family is. And then you get a crash because I guess you get this. Well, it should be defined now, so I don't know why you're flipping out. All right, it's not flipping out anymore. Great. So the default, so the sans family theme, the way Tailwind works, is going to be the default theme for the app. So it will always fall to there, and we can have like a cursive theme for fancy bubbles. This is what we called it. And full back there. Ooh, they don't have a cursive. Right, so let's not bring this in even. Let's say that this falls back to sans serif. We know we'll have this loaded thanks to how we're importing it. And this is gonna be cursive. And maybe restart the server just to be certain. All right, why is it defaulting to the cursive one? I don't know. Like it's like 50-50 chance which one we get, which is quite weird. Default. So it's setting to match the default configured sans. So if we customize the sans key, which we do, we should be fine. And yet we have this problem with the flashing some of the time with hard refresh. So here, text, font family, it's fuzzy bubbles, it says, but why? Doesn't make sense. We do need to escape this. So that's kind of good to know. Or maybe not, they're not escaping this. Does want this to be fuzzy bubbles like this. This doesn't make sense. Is it something weird they're doing thanks to our automatic font stuff? That has to be it. So we're doing this thing on the HTML, interestingly enough. It has these two class names, which is fine. And then in the head, it's important fuzzy bubbles. But what is it doing to get that weird font definition? That's the part I don't get. Because the HTML has this class. I see. Alright, that kinda makes sense, I guess. So both of these classes are defined. What happens if I don't add these classes? Does the font not get inlined? So let's search for font again. Add font even. Can I can only imagine if I don't import it, then I don't get these classes that have the font, surely. And the way this font family is named weirds me out. So surely they don't expect us that all your site is going to have this one font, and that's it. Alright, so Montserrat, like Inter, are variable fonts. That's why you don't specify a weight. It's great. Interesting. So everywhere we want to use this font, we can't use it with Tailwind because they have these different classes. That's very interesting, indeed. So thinking on the fly here, looks like we can't use the font family helpers here. So and extend this to have font family none. Which I don't even know what will do, but it does mean that we can have like a fonts TypeScript file, I guess, and it's in here that will be importing maybe the sans serif font. What else did we do? Nothing much. And the fuzzy bubbles font. Exported, which is gonna be our cursive font. So we can say that for our main layout, which has our HTML, we can add the Montserrat class name, and everything will be Montserrat. It will look just fine. But in cases where we actually want things to be cursive, so we're not going to be importing it from here. I want to specify in TypeScript the redirector to be source. Excuse the typos. Looks like we can use root dir. Hopefully. Because with all of this, what am I trying to do is to have a handwriting component or handwritten component, just to prove the point. And this one React node. And handwritten note. And we can even copy this. So in our page, we can say we have a handwritten note. And in here, we do this. But in this component, we add a class name to the div with our cursive font class name. Just makes it look like this. Yeah, not great, but I suppose this is the way to do it if you want to have some places where you're using a cursive font. I guess with the way that they're doing the font optimization stuff, every time you do this, you get a different class name. Every time this compiles for some reason. Maybe to do a cast busting type of thing, if there is a different version of the font. Here as a thanks, glad you liked it. Yeah, I'm not too confident about this. This doesn't feel like super usable to me. And not sure. This is how I would hope that the redirectory would work, but it doesn't seem to quite work yet. Maybe I need to restart the server. Maybe not. Anyway, that's by the by. It seems that this has like a 50% chance of working. Because it is adding this class name. This class name is adding the font family of fuzzy bubbles, which has this weird name, not the expected name. And I guess this means that the font hasn't been loaded, even though we're doing this. Interesting. I guess we can look a bit more on how the font stuff works, but I've definitely opened this in many new windows. But once again, it's in a layout. It's a unique page. Interesting. So can we only call it in a layout? Can we only use it in a layout component? I guess that's the answer. We need to do it in a layout component or in a page. Not in a component. But then how can I say that this component should be using the cursive font? Do I pass in a class, I guess? It doesn't seem super convenient. Because every time I call this, it's hosted, an instance of the application. So this file with the fonts, should it be here? I guess that's the answer. Bring it back to where it was before, where we started with. But actually export these two things. Not use the cursive font, so everything falls back to this. And then I guess if you have the handwritten note, we bring the cursive font from the collocated layout thingy. And I would hope that this would make it work, but it doesn't look like it quite does. Maybe a refresh would make it happier, but I guess not. So I am officially stumped. Does it figure out that it's not used inside this layout? Doesn't make sense. What else does it have? It has a class name, which is, fair enough. What else does it have that I can use here? I can add as a style. It's interesting. We can see that on the reload it works, or it worked in that instance momentarily, but then when I refreshed, so when I switched to using the style tag, it kinda changed, but then disappeared again. Interesting. I am weirded out by this. I would also want to use this as the name in Tailwind. Maybe that's one way to do it, but surely this config runs way before this runs. Way before this runs. So I don't think I'd be able to use it. It's like a roundabout dependency to get the name of the font. Weird. Definitely something to look into in the future. In any case, let's talk layouts a little bit before calling it a day and taking a break. The layouts as an idea, I do like. They shine when you have a main list and detail view. So if you have a dashboard and on the left you have all your mail or your email, and on the right you have a nice little placeholder that says you have no more mail selected, and then you click on the left, and then on the right side you get the contents of your email, your invoices, your whatever's. That's a place where layouts like this, nested layouts, are super handy. They do make the data fetching more efficient, I would say, if a framework has been written, the abundance of that. So React Router was all in on that sort of solution. So it was super handy to make layouts like this for that. And now Next.js and SvelteKit seem to be adapting to also allow for that, but it was quite a lot of hard work from a lot of people. In any case, I guess Facebook as well, if you remember how Facebook used to be, or maybe still is nowadays, who knows. You have something that loads quite fast, independently from everything else that also loads quite fast, to be honest. So the header, depending on who you are, will load into existence independently of your newsfeed in the middle, independently of like your chat on the left or whatever was on the left there. And the layouts, as I think are implemented here, should make that sort of thing easier to stream data into those specific different layout components. But that's something that we'll investigate in the future, as I don't really have an example for this. Today mostly we did the social image stuff, which I think was better than I thought. I was stuck at the point with how to nest multiple divs inside divs. Turns out we need to specify their style to be flex, so not too bad. Emoji support by default, and you can tweak what type of emojis you get. Fonts by default working better than what we're trying to do now with the dynamic font optimization stuff. It doesn't work with Turbopack, which is their next Webpack iteration, which was quite funny. But still, I think this will be quite handy for many people. But still, there may be something to the SaaS idea from the previous stream to have a service that does this for you, because maybe you want to use Turbopack and you can't use it with this solution. So maybe you want to go to another service that does this. But of course, the idea of the SaaS is that you have a professionally designed social images. You don't have to start styling things left and right to come up with, let's say that your styling abilities are like mine, so workable but not amazing. But what we'll be providing will be visually stunning and will make people want to click on your tweet or Discord share or whatever else. But yeah, I think this is gonna be calling it a day. We did bring in Tailwind. We didn't do this today. Kinda messed around with the font loading again. I did talk a few times in the stream, Next.js versus SvelteKit. These are the two big JavaScript framework options I choose between. Nowadays, I don't use Twitter anymore because it's engineered to trigger people and promote engagement that may be kind of unhealthy. I remember after the Next.js conf, I got a notification from Twitter about somebody complaining how, oh, now the React team is pushing Next.js. I wish React was just a library and not a framework. And I did want to respond, but I didn't, because I know it was artificially designed by that person to generate engagement, I suppose. Companies pay quite a lot of money to principal engineers and other people to have opinions and solve things for them and say, this is the way to do it, that's it. And similarly, that's why I like frameworks with opinions. You should want the frameworks to tell you how to do things. You shouldn't want to build everything from scratch. So I definitely do wish that React started having a partnership with something like Next.js and Vercel earlier on even, and went a bit harder on opinions, and this is the way to do things. But that's a different tangent, I suppose. And Next.js is the one I like. I guess the problem with frameworks is that at some point their standard way of doing it does not comply with the way you want to do things. They don't seem intuitive to you, and that's not objective. It's definitely subjective. There are some things that are objectively true and false, and some of the preferences of how we should build front-end apps, not always the same. No need for more tangents, I suppose. Clearly I've called it too much. Did I want to bring in Laravel and PHP and that sort of thing today? Maybe not. Although that was an example of a framework that clearly had a very strong opinion of how to do things. It also had Laracas, so a different third party at the moment, providing more insight on how to do things, a person trying to explain how to do things with Laravel. So strong vision from the Laravel project, and then people trying to do tutorials on how to demystify things in Laravel that weren't super clear. I think that's a great combo. I hope that happens more. I know Vercel is putting quite a lot of money for quite a lot of content on how to do things. I'm trying to help in the Next.js land, in the SvelteKit land. Just let me know what you want to demystify, and I'll do my best to do it in a stream or a proper video. That's about it. So one last sip, just to see if we get any last comments. And if not, we'll call it a stream. I hope you had an amazing time today. I don't know what we'll be working on next Friday, but high chance we'll pick up our SAS to do the social preview image generation hassle-free without you having to set up tons of things. Maybe we'll transition to doing it with Next.js. Maybe in the meantime I'll try to use this satori library in SvelteKit to see if that's an option as well. But of course, let me know in any video comments, in the Discord if you'd like to join. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks a bunch for your company today. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. I'll catch you later.